6:44 now. We're sticking with Ferguson. Let's talk about this grand jury process. And even though we don't know what the results are at this point, there's been a lot of controversy as to how the legal process has unfolded. Brian Bouffard is a legal expert and attorney. Online, you can find him at bouffardlaw.com. Brian, great to have you on the program.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Yeah, because we've talked many times. You deal with military cases, also civilian cases. First, what is your view on how this particular Ferguson grand jury went down?
Well, we won't really know until 8 o'clock tonight and see what they do, but they do seem to have taken quite a bit of time, and hopefully they're doing their job right, and if they're going to do it right, then let them take all the time they need.
What is it typically happens then? I mean, take me through a typical grand jury process. Why does it take so long?
Well, normally it doesn't. Normally it doesn't take this long at all. It's a very simple process wherein the prosecutor brings the evidence to the grand jury and makes a recommendation whether the prosecutor believes it should be an indictment or that it be dismissed and no indictment issue. And usually they come to their decisions pretty quickly. Now, obviously, this is a very highly charged case. They are certainly aware of all the media attention surrounding it. So, again, I hope they're taking their time in a way that indicates that they're doing the right thing. So
is this essentially like a jury deciding the results of a trial, that kind of thing?
Well, no. I mean, they have comparatively a very simple job. They just need to look at the evidence and determine whether or not they think that there is probable cause that an offense was committed and that the defendant, in this case, Officer Wilson, I believe, is responsible for that.
And how often typically does the grand jury agree with the prosecutors to move ahead, or how does it work usually?
Normally they do. In fact, you probably heard the phrase, a prosecutor can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich, and that's not really too far away from the truth. They normally do what the prosecutors tell them to do.
Okay, now does that change when you're dealing with a police officer?
I don't see necessarily any reason why it should. I think the only thing that really makes this different than a normal grand jury presentation would be the intense media circus that has surrounded it. I mean, every grand juror certainly understands what's going on outside the grand jury room, and that cannot help but affect their decision making.
Now, when you say this is longer than usual, what's the typical length of a grand jury to decide this kind of thing?
Well, it's not unusual for a prosecutor to take in a stack of 20 or so cases and have it done in an afternoon. In one afternoon? Sure.
And the delay in this case is simply because of the pressure, the media pressure?
I can only speculate, but yeah, I would think so. I mean, even very serious cases, to determine whether or not there's probable cause is a very, normally a very simple inquiry. They're not concerned at this point with beyond a reasonable doubt. They're just looking to see if there's enough there that it should even go forward at all.
And so what would they have been presented with, that would take so long to look at?
Again, I don't know. I mean, hopefully, well. I mean,
they get the medical records. What else? I mean, what are they really? What kind of information are they given?
They could. I'm sure in a case like this, they would want to pour over the autopsy with a fine-tooth comb to determine, angles of entry and things like that might indicate whether there was a struggle going on.
Do they hear from witnesses? Do witnesses come in?
Sure, absolutely. The prosecution can bring in witnesses, and in a case like this, it certainly is to everyone's benefit if the prosecution just kind of lays it all out there and just says, we don't have a recommendation. You look at it and do what you think is right.
And is that the approach the prosecution takes?
Not usually. Usually they do have an opinion. Our office, our DA's office, we think this case should go forward, or we think this case shouldn't. But I have also seen cases where the prosecutor really does say, hey, I don't personally have a dog in this fight, and our office stands ready to march in whatever direction you, the grand jury, deem appropriate. So just kind of putting it all on them.
When you see a grand jury sit for this long, is there an outcome that tends to be typical?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I am just as interested as anyone else to see what happens tonight at 8 o'clock when they announce it.
Gotcha. You said the bar's very low, though, right? Essentially, they just have to decide on. They're not even deciding if there's actually a crime there. They just think it's worth looking at, or that kind of thing.
Well, no, they're deciding whether they think a crime's been committed, but their standard of proof is extremely low. When there's a trial, the government has to prove every element of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt. But at the grand jury stage, it's only a very low standard called probable cause, and it's even below 50%. It doesn't even rise to the level of more likely than not. It's just, is there enough there that this should go forward to an actual trial?
Okay, so something beyond just an accident?
Correct. Yeah. If they think an accident took place, then they shouldn't indict, because that would mean that no crime had been committed.
Or a self-defense, which is, I guess, the case here. Now, is there any defensive response to this, or is it just the prosecutorial end that talks in the grand jury?
Well, at the grand jury stage, it's the prosecution's show. Now, having said that, there are certainly instances, particularly in an enlightened county like Tarrant County in Fort Worth, Texas, where I reside and practice my civilian practice. We have a DA's office that is very good about allowing defense attorneys to present information to the grand jury. And I've even had some cases where, I trust the prosecutor enough to give them information and feel very confident that they, lay it all out. So some counties are that way. Other counties just completely, hide the ball from everybody else, and it's just kind of another arm of the DA's office.
Gotcha.
So,
in the grand jury, it's a majority vote, or they all have to agree one way?
If 9 of them vote to indict, there will be an indictment, 9 out of 12. And if less than 9 vote, then it's a no bill. It's no indictment.
Gotcha. Do you have a prediction, a gut feeling here?
I really don't. I'd tell you if I did, but there's so much swirling around this, and of course I'm not privy to the evidence myself, so I can't look at that and say, it's clear to me that this ought to be one way or the other.
It's Brian Bouffard, attorney. Find him online, bouffardlaw.com. He's down there in Texas, but he represents people all over the world. Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. Take care.
6:51 as we roll along the Capital City recap. The Keystone XL pipeline voted. It got through the House, did not get through the Senate. The Senate vote 59 to 41. But look, this is not anywhere near over. We've got a lot more to come. In fact, Mitch McConnell, when he takes over the Senate, he says that it's likely that we'll see this legislation resurrected. We'll get further fights over this Keystone XL pipeline issue. And my next guest, if we can get him on the line, I think we're working on it. He'll tell us about his experiences. What he did, he wrote a book about the Keystone XL pipeline, and he did this by actually traveling down along the path of where the pipe will be installed. He started way up there in Canada, traveled all the way down through the Midwest, and talked to all kinds of people along the way to get their thoughts on what the pipeline means to the country, what it'll mean to their lives, the environmental concerns, the economic prospects, and I believe we may or may not have him on here. Let's take a quick break. We'll make some adjustments, and maybe we'll get him on here. Hold on.